I thought I knew my daughter-in-law. For 9 years, Vanessa had been part of our family. 9 years of Sunday dinners, birthday celebrations, and what I believed were genuine smiles. My son Marcus had met her at a medical conference in Halifax. He was a hospital administrator. She was a pharmaceutical sales representative. They married 6 months later. Too fast, my late wife had whispered to me at the wedding. But I dismissed her concerns as a mother's natural worry. Marcus had a daughter from his first marriage, my granddaughter Lily, who was 13 now. After his divorce when Lily was just 2, Marcus had raised her mostly on his own until Vanessa came along. I'd been grateful then. Vanessa seemed to embrace Lily, seemed to ease the burden on my son who was working 70-hour weeks at Toronto General Hospital. But 3 months ago, something shifted. Marcus started getting sick. Not dramatically, just tired all the time. Nauseous. He'd lost 15 pounds. The doctors ran every test imaginable. Nothing. They talked about stress, about burnout, about anxiety. They prescribed antidepressants. Nothing helped. If anything, he got worse. Last Sunday, we met for brunch at the Harbourfront Cafe, our usual spot overlooking Lake Ontario. It was early November, that gray Toronto season, where the cold seeps into your bones. Lily sat between Marcus and me, pushing eggs around her plate. Marcus barely touched his food. Vanessa was on her phone, as always, typing furiously. "Honey, you should eat something," Vanessa said without looking up from her screen, her voice carrying that practiced concern I'd heard 100 times. Marcus waved her off. "Not hungry, Van." I watched my son, really watched him. His skin had a grayish tint. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his water glass. He was 41 years old and looked 60. That's when Lily's hand brushed mine under the table. She pressed something into my palm, something small, paper. Her eyes met mine for just a second, wide and urgent, before she looked away. I glanced down. It was a receipt from a coffee shop, folded tight. "Excuse me," I said, pushing back from the table. "Washroom." My heart hammered as I locked myself in a stall. I unfolded the receipt with shaking hands. On the back, in Lily's careful purple gel pen handwriting, were words that made my blood run cold. "Grandpa, Mom has another place. 2250 King Street West, Unit 319. She goes there every Tuesday and Thursday when Dad's at work. I followed her last week. She's hiding something there. Something bad. There are bottles and notebooks. Please check before Friday. I'm scared. Don't tell her I told you. Juanos." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and slipped it into my wallet. When I returned to the table, I forced myself to act normal. We finished brunch. Vanessa kissed Marcus on the cheek and reminded him about his doctor's appointment on Thursday. She smiled at me, that perfect smile, and I smiled back. But I knew something was very, very wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Marcus's symptoms. The nausea, the fatigue, the weight loss, the tremors. I thought about my late wife, Catherine, who'd been a nurse for 35 years. What would she do? She'd investigate. Tuesday morning, I drove to King Street West. It was one of those new condo buildings, all glass and steel, with a doorman and a code-required entrance. I waited across the street in my car, parked between a Tim Hortons and a dental office. At 10:30 a.m., Vanessa's silver Lexus pulled into the underground parking. My hands gripped the steering wheel. So, Lily was right. Vanessa did have another place. I waited 20 minutes, then walked to the building. The doorman was helping an elderly resident with grocery bags. I slipped past, caught the elevator just as a young woman in yoga clothes was getting on. "Which floor?" she asked. "3, please." She pressed the button, and we rode up in silence. Unit 319 was at the end of the hallway. I stood there for a long moment, my hand raised to knock. What was I doing? What did I expect to find? I knocked anyway. No answer. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. I tried the handle locked, of course, but as I stood there, another resident came out of Unit 321, an older woman with a small dog. "Excuse me," I said, thinking fast. "I'm supposed to meet my daughter here, but she's not answering." "Vanessa? Unit 319? The woman looked at me suspiciously. "I don't know any Vanessa. The woman who lives there told me her name was Victoria. Keeps odd hours. I hear her talking sometimes, Very late at night. Victoria. A different name. Must be a mistake, I said, smiling. Sorry to bother you. I went back to my car and waited. At noon, Vanessa emerged from the building, got in her car, and drove away. She was heading east, probably back to their house in the Beaches neighborhood. I gave her 10 minutes, then returned to the building. This time, I had a plan. The doorman was at his post. I approached him with my most helpless expression. Excuse me, sir. I'm terribly embarrassed. But I'm supposed to meet my daughter. She lives in Unit 319, and I've completely forgotten the code she gave me. I'm 68 years old. My memory isn't what it used to be. He looked at me with sympathy. Victoria in 319? Yes, that's her. She uses her middle name sometimes. He hesitated, then said, I'm not supposed to let anyone up without calling first. I pulled out my wallet, showed him my driver's license with the same last name Marcus used. It's my daughter. Family emergency. Please. I just need to leave her something. Maybe it was my age. Or maybe he was just tired. But he nodded. I can take you up, but I'll need to see you leave something at her door. Of course. We rode the elevator together. He waited at a respectful distance as I walked to Unit 319. I pulled out a notepad from my jacket and scribbled a fake message, folded it, and slipped it under the door for show. Thank you so much, I told the doorman. He smiled and left. I waited until I heard the elevator doors close. Then I tried the door handle again, just in case. Still locked. But this time, I noticed something. The door frame was slightly warped at the bottom, as if someone had forced it before, and it had been poorly repaired. I went back to my car and sat there until 3 p.m., thinking, I needed to get inside that apartment. I needed to know what Vanessa was hiding. That evening, I called Lily. Grandpa? Her voice was small, cautious. Lily, sweetheart, I got your message. I heard her exhale in relief. Did you go there? I did, but I couldn't get inside. Lily, how did you know about this place? Last month, I needed Mom to sign a school form. She wasn't home, so I used the Find My Phone app to see where she was. Dad had given me access to it in case of emergencies. I saw she was at this random address on King Street, so I told Dad I was going to my friend Emma's house after school, but I took the streetcar there instead. My chest tightened. Lily, that's dangerous. You shouldn't have. I know, Grandpa, but Dad's so sick, and Mom keeps saying it's just stress, but it's not. It's getting worse. I had to do something. What did you see when you went there? I couldn't get in the building, but I watched from across the street. Mom was there for 3 hours, and when she came out, she was carrying a briefcase. She looked different, not like our mom, more serious. Scary, almost. I closed my eyes. Lily, has your mom been giving your dad any medications, vitamins, supplements, anything besides what the doctors prescribed? There was a long pause. Yes. She makes him special smoothies every morning. She says they're good for energy. And she gives him these herbal capsules at night. She orders them online. She says they're from some wellness company. My heart was racing now. Lily, this is very important. Do not let your father know we talked. Act completely normal around your mom. Can you do that? Yes. Good girl. I'm going to figure this out. I promise. The next morning, Wednesday, I drove back to King Street. This time I parked in the underground garage and found Vanessa's assigned spot #309, matching the unit number. I waited. At 10:15 a.m., her Lexus pulled in. I ducked behind a concrete pillar and watched. Vanessa got out, carrying her designer purse and a large tote bag. She walked to the elevator, typed in a code, and disappeared inside. I waited 5 minutes, then approached the elevator. There was a numeric keypad. I tried a few common combinations. Nothing. Then I remembered Vanessa's birthday was March 19th. I tried 0319. The elevator doors opened. 3rd floor. Unit 319. I stood outside the door again. This time, I noticed something I'd missed before. A small security camera mounted above the door frame, pointed at the hallway. My face would be on video, but I'd come this far. I knocked firmly. Vanessa? It's me, Richard. Silence. I knocked again. Vanessa, I know you're in there. Your car is downstairs. We need to talk. Finally, I heard movement. The door opened a crack, chain still on. Vanessa's face appeared, eyes wide with surprise. Richard, what are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing. Marcus thinks you're at the gym, but you're here. In an apartment you never mentioned. Using a different name. Her expression shifted, hardened. This is none of your business. My son is dying, Vanessa. That makes it my business. He's not dying. He's depressed. The doctors said. The doctors are wrong. And I think you know that. We stared at each other through the crack in the door. Then, slowly, she closed it. I heard the chain slide off. The door opened fully. Come in, she said, her voice cold. Since you've gone to so much trouble. The apartment was small, impersonal. It looked like a corporate rental, beige furniture, generic artwork, nothing personal. Except for one thing. The dining table was covered with notebooks, pill bottles, and printed documents. What is all this? I asked. Vanessa walked to the table and started gathering the papers, but I was faster. I grabbed a notebook, flipped it open. It was a log. Dates, times, dosages. The entries went back 9 years. My hands started shaking as I read. The 15th of January, 2017. Started low dose. No symptoms yet. The 3rd of February, 2017. Increased slightly. Complaining of fatigue. The 12th of March, 2017. Holding steady. Weight loss beginning. The 20th of April, 2017. Added compound B. Nausea presenting. I looked up at Vanessa. She was watching me with an expression I'd never seen before. Calm, calculating, utterly devoid of the warmth I thought I knew. You've been poisoning him, I whispered. Poisoning is such an ugly word, she said. I prefer managing his health. For 9 years? Why? She laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Why? Because your precious son is worth $3 million in life insurance, Richard. Because I've put 9 years into this marriage, and I'm not leaving with nothing. Because I deserve that money after playing happy homemaker all this time. My legs felt weak. I sat down heavily in one of the dining chairs. $3 million. His policy through the hospital. Double indemnity if it's an accident. But chronic illness works too. Slower, but just as effective. The beauty is, the doctors can't find anything because it's not one thing. It's multiple compounds, carefully balanced. Mercury from my old pharmaceutical contacts. Arsenic in trace amounts. A few others. Low doses over years. Mimics autoimmune disease, chronic fatigue, depression. By the time they figure it out, if they ever do, he'll be dead and I'll be a grieving widow. I couldn't breathe. The smoothies, the supplements, among other things. I've been very creative. Did you know you can put certain compounds in laundry detergent? Absorbed through the skin. In fabric softener. In his shampoo. You're insane. I'm practical. And I would have succeeded if it weren't for that nosy little brat. I should have known Lily was following me. She's too smart for her own good. My phone was in my jacket pocket. I'd called Lily's number before coming up but hadn't hung up. The call was still connected, recording everything. What about Lily? I asked, trying to keep Vanessa talking. What happens to her when Marcus dies? Vanessa shrugged. She goes back to her mother in Vancouver, I suppose. Not my problem. Though I'll admit she's been a complication. She watches me. Always watching. I've had to be so careful. She's just a child trying to protect her father. She's a liability, just like you are now. Vanessa opened a drawer in the kitchen counter. My heart stopped. Was she getting a weapon? But she pulled out another bottle instead. You know, Richard, you're also getting on in years. It would be so tragic if you developed similar symptoms to Marcus. Heart problems run in families, don't they? That's when I stood up, pulled out my phone, and showed her the screen. The call to Lily, still connected, had been running for 17 minutes. Vanessa's face went white. You recorded me? I did, and I'm going to walk out of here now and go straight to the police. You're going to stay right here and not move. Because my granddaughter also called 911 before I came up, and they're probably in the building already. As if on cue, I heard a loud knock on the door behind me. Toronto police, open up. Vanessa lunged for the table, trying to sweep the notebooks and bottles into her tote bag. But I was already at the door, unlocking it. 2 officers entered, hands on their holsters. Richard Morrison? Yes, this is Vanessa Morrison, my daughter-in-law. She's just confessed to poisoning my son over the past 9 years. It's all recorded on my phone. One officer moved to restrain Vanessa, while the other carefully photographed the evidence on the table. You can't prove anything, Vanessa spat. That recording is inadmissible. I didn't consent. In Canada, only one party needs to consent to record a conversation, the officer said calmly, and you just confessed to attempted murder. They read her rights as they handcuffed her. She was still screaming about her lawyer when they led her away. I stood there in that cold, impersonal apartment, surrounded by the evidence of 9 years of methodical cruelty, and I wept. They took Marcus to the hospital that night. The doctors, now knowing what to look for, ran specialized tests. Heavy metal poisoning, multiple toxic compounds in his system. They started chelation therapy immediately. It would take months, maybe years, for him to fully recover. But he would recover. Lily saved her father's life. A 13-year-old girl who trusted her instincts, who was brave enough to investigate when the adults around her missed the signs, who knew how to reach out for help. The trial was 3 months later. The evidence was overwhelming, the notebooks detailing dosages, the bottles of compounds, the pharmacy records showing Vanessa had purchased the materials using fake credentials, the recording of her confession, the forensic evidence in Marcus's blood work. She'd also done this before. The police found evidence she'd been married twice before Marcus. Both husbands died of mysterious illnesses. Both had substantial life insurance policies. Vanessa was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years. Marcus is doing better now. He's back at work, though only part-time. The neurological damage from the toxins means he'll probably never be quite the same. His hands still shake sometimes. His memory has gaps. But he's alive. He sold the house in the beaches, too many bad memories. He and Lily moved into a condo downtown, closer to my place. We see each other often. Lily is thriving. She's in therapy, of course, processing what she witnessed and what she had to do. But she's strong. Remarkably strong. Last month, on a Sunday afternoon, the three of us were having lunch at the Harborfront Cafe again. Same place where Lily slipped me that receipt 9 months earlier. Marcus was laughing at something Lily said, actually laughing, and I realized I hadn't heard him laugh in years. "Grandpa," Lily said suddenly, her voice serious, "I want to be a forensic scientist when I grow up. Or maybe a police detective." "You'd be brilliant at it," I told her. "Someone has to protect people," she said, "especially from the people who are supposed to love them." Marcus reached over and squeezed his daughter's hand. "You already are, sweetheart. I've thought a lot about what happened over these past months, about how evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it sits across from you at the dinner table, smiling. Sometimes it packs your lunch and kisses you goodbye. Sometimes it looks exactly like love. There are lessons here that I think about sharing whenever I can. First, trust the children in your life. Really trust them. When they try to tell you something is wrong, listen. Don't dismiss their concerns as childish imagination or drama. Kids see things adults miss because they're not yet trained to ignore their instincts. Lily knew something was wrong long before any of us acknowledged it. She trusted her gut, and it saved her father's life. Second, pay attention to patterns. Marcus's illness didn't make sense to the doctors because they were looking for a single cause. But patterns of behavior can reveal truths that individual incidents obscure. Vanessa's Tuesday and Thursday absences. Her insistence on preparing all of Marcus's food and supplements. Her career in pharmaceuticals that gave her access and knowledge. Individually, none of these things proved anything. Together, they painted a picture. Third, document everything. If something feels wrong in your family, keep records. Times, dates, symptoms, behaviors. I wish we'd started documenting Marcus's decline sooner. We might have seen the pattern earlier. Those notebooks Vanessa kept ultimately convicted her, but our own records would have helped too. Fourth, know the warning signs of poisoning. Chronic fatigue, unexplained weight loss, gastrointestinal problems, neurological symptoms like tremors or memory loss. Symptoms that don't respond to standard treatment, these can all indicate toxic exposure. If someone in your life has these symptoms, and doctors can't find a cause, consider getting a toxicology screen. It's not paranoid to be thorough when health is concerned. Fifth, understand that abuse can be invisible. Financial abuse, medical abuse, psychological abuse, these don't leave bruises. They're harder to identify and easier to explain away. The abuser often appears to be the devoted caregiver, the concerned spouse, the helpful family member. That's what makes it so insidious. Sixth, never underestimate the power of life insurance as a motive. $3 million is a powerful incentive for someone without conscience. If you or someone you love has substantial life insurance, make sure more than one person knows about it. Make sure there are safeguards. Make sure someone is paying attention. Seventh, teach your children that it's okay to question adults, even family members. Teach them that love doesn't mean blind obedience. Teach them that if something feels wrong, it probably is. Teach them who to call and how to ask for help. Lily knew she could come to me because we'd always had that relationship. Every child should have at least one trusted adult they can turn to. Eighth, if you suspect someone is being harmed, act. Don't wait for absolute proof. Don't worry about being wrong or causing embarrassment. Call the police. Call Adult Protective Services. Call someone. I could have waited. Could have tried to gather more evidence on my own. Could have convinced myself I was overreacting. But Lily's note said before Friday, and that urgency saved Marcus's life. Finally, understand that recovery from this kind of betrayal is long and complicated. Marcus didn't just survive poisoning. He survived betrayal by someone he loved and trusted. That psychological damage takes time to heal. Be patient with survivors. Support them. Understand that trust will be difficult for them. That's normal. That's healthy, even. I'm 68 years old now. I've lived through a lot: my wife's death, my son's first divorce, various health scares and financial struggles. But nothing prepared me for this. Nothing prepares you for discovering that someone in your family, someone you welcomed into your life, is capable of sustained, calculated murder. Yet I'm also grateful. Grateful for Lily's courage and intelligence. Grateful that we acted in time. Grateful that Marcus is still here, still healing, still trying. Every Sunday, we still have brunch together. Same cafe, same table by the window overlooking the lake. And every time, I'm reminded of that morning 9 months ago when everything changed. When a 13-year-old girl handed me a receipt with a message that saved her father's life. The receipt is framed now, hanging in Marcus's condo. A reminder, a warning, a celebration of the bravery of one young girl who refused to look away when something was wrong. If you take nothing else from this story, take this. Protect your family, but remember that sometimes the danger is already inside your home. Watch for the signs. Trust your instincts. And when the children in your life try to tell you something important, listen to them. Really listen. They might just save someone's life.